Update: am I the butthole for getting frustrated with my mom for being in the kitchen at the same time as me? Original post. I got a much bigger response on my original post than I ever thought I would. A couple hours after I posted it, I realized I left a lot of information out and wanted to clarify some things, as well as provide an update on the situation. Some people asked if I pay rent or own the house. It's my parents' house, and I don't pay rent. I can't afford to move out right now, and my parents don't want to let me move out until after my first year of university. Some people also asked if I'm autistic. I have ADHD, which shares a lot of traits with autism. I stick to a strict routine because it's the only way I'm able to remember to do everything I need to in the morning. A lot of people suggested packing my lunch at a different time, or even the night before. I had tried this before. No matter what time I went into the kitchen, my mom followed. I tried it again a couple times since making the post, and she continued to follow me. I took the advice of some people who told me to try going into the kitchen as usual, but to leave when my mom got in my way and tell her I'd wait until she was finished. I even made sure the kitchen was spotless the night before. Dishwasher emptied, no dishes in the sink, counters wiped down, and trash emptied. She followed me in, and when I said I'd wait, she said she was done. Almost as soon as I went back in, she followed me in again and claimed she had forgotten to do something. A lot of people pointed out that she might just want to spend time with me, which I hadn't thought of before. I think that maybe me getting a job, finishing high school, and starting to work towards getting my driver's license made her realize I'm growing up and won't be dependent on her/living at home for much longer. Maybe she just wants to spend as much time with me as she can before I go, or maybe she doesn't feel as mom as she did before. What finally worked was, after dinner a couple nights ago, asking her to pack some leftovers from dinner in a separate container for me to take for lunch the next day. She seemed really happy that I asked, and didn't follow me into the kitchen the next morning. She even left a sticky note with a smiley face on top of the container. I also asked if she could drive me to work, which gave us the chance to chat and catch up in the car. I think she just missed feeling like I need her, which I always will. Even though we butt heads sometimes, she'll always be my mom, and I think I just needed to find a way to remind her of that. I wrote my original post feeling super frustrated at my mom, but I teared up a bit finishing this update. Sending a massive thank you to all the kind people who commented and helped me work this out. Web link. I'm so glad that this situation got sorted out and has such a wholesome ending. Communication is important in every relationship, but it always seems to be the one thing people don't do until it's too late. Hopefully whenever other issues come up in life you can look back on this as an important life lesson. Edit: I went to sleep and come back to 7.5k upvotes and top comment. Thanks. My communication would definitely have sounded hostile. Mom, could you please get from under my feet before I trip over you? Mine was, because this has happened, me just freaking out, and it actually was part of what led to my ADHD diagnosis. Kind of ironic that original post also has ADHD. Hi. Could you tell me a bit more about how that was connected to your ADHD diagnosis? Been meaning to get tested for it myself. It's a long story, but basically you get overstimulated a lot easier with ADHD, meaning you get overwhelmed a lot easier. The best way for me to describe my ADHD is like an office that just had all their paperwork floating around in the air. I had have so many things on my mind. So when one little thing goes wrong, like someone being in the kitchen and me not being able to move around to finish my task, then it pushes me over the edge. I can't focus and I lose control of myself. Of course, this wasn't just in the kitchen. It was when I was doing homework and my dog barked too much, or my parents changed one little aspect of a plan. My brain couldn't handle anything else, so I would just snap. It wasn't anything personal, although some of the things I said were bad, like I told my parents I should just kill myself because I can't cook an egg without it burning, and caused a lot of stress not just for me but everyone around me. If you go online you can actually find the evaluation forms used to do a basic diagnosis. So when you got to the doctor you have already completed step 1, and can get things moving faster. Also, I've been told it's genetic, so if anyone in your imitate family has it, the possibility is higher. I officially make half of the grandchildren on my mom's side neurodivergent ADHD squad. My grandmother probably had it, but she passed away 10 years ago without being diagnosed. We all have the same/similar characteristics, and a lot of them are stuff she did. Hey, bud, I know that when you're crying over eggs, it isn't about the eggs at all, but when I was really overwhelmed, depressed, had a hard time focusing, and I wasn't eating properly, that little porcelain egg cup that makes perfect scrambled eggs every time actually really helped. As my grandma always said, you can't march on an empty stomach. What is this egg contraption you speak of? Asking is a crafty cook. It's called the Eggtastic. Cheesy name, I know. It's like a handle-less mug with a lid. You can crack up to 4 eggs in it and add ham/cheese/veggies. It makes perfect eggs in like a minute. Eggtastic. I read this as Eggstatic and thought to myself, cheesy? That's effing brilliant. I'm always stoked to have eggs for breakfast. Eggtastic is kind of dumb, though. It's really reaching. They should hire you to run their marketing department. Hey, bud, I know this isn't about the eggs at all, I think it's still a great suggestion. I didn't know those were things related to ADHD. I thought it was because of depression. I was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid and for a time was on meds, but got taken off them. I might look into better coping mechanisms/meds again, if there are good meds for ADHD. Thank you for sharing this. Just popped into the thread and saw your comment and got a bit of a light bulb moment. Good meds for ADHD are literally any meds that can help. If you don't have some other more severe, or dangerous/risky, conditions that eliminate meds as an option completely, it could change your life finding a psychiatrist that you can openly communicate with. Adderall and stimulants in general can definitely be a risk for people that aren't in the right mindset to actually take advantage of the benefits they offer for people ADHD. Don't let that discourage you from actually trying medications that are proven to help more than any other treatment we have currently. I've struggled with addiction, and even in my periods of happy and healthy living, I was still struggling with the symptoms of ADHD. I had accepted that I would just have to deal with it because of the advice of many people that were extremely unqualified to give that sort of advice. Find someone that will work with you and that you can be open and honest about everything. ADHD is definitely still unfairly stigmatized by a lot of people due to drug-seeking patients and pill mill doctors. Don't let yourself suffer because of other people's beliefs. I love my husband and 18-year-old, but they are both banned from the kitchen and talking to me in the morning until I have my snacks and other stuff ready to go to work. There is a very real risk of me forgetting essential otherwise. Both my kids are diagnosed ADHD, and it's almost certain I have it too. All of us are somewhere on the autism spectrum as well. I need to stay in my mental space to be sure everything is done. Is it ever exhausting for you to have to remember everything for everyone? My son and I both are ADHD and ASD and I get so overwhelmed as a mom. Great description. I have ADHD and I actually love cooking because it lets me slow down and focus on one thing. But nobody else better be in the kitchen, lol. If you're looking for more things about ADHD, hit up the r/odd subreddit. It has a lot of information about the lesser-known qualities of it. Reddit link. I'd recommend r/odders or if you're female r/odd women instead. The main ADHD sub has some pretty toxic mods and isn't a good place these days. Reddit link. Ooh, interesting. I used to be subscribed to r/odd because I wanted tips on how to manage, but it was mostly people complaining and that's just not good for my mental health. Totally understand the need for venting, it's just not what I needed. Do you mind sharing what's toxic about the mods? Reddit link. They've created a space that's pretty much only for complaining. They are vehement in their assertion that ADHD is a horrible disability and that there is nothing good or positive that can come from it. Any discussion of how to turn ADHD traits to your advantage, i.e. how a lot of EMTs have ADHD because the hyperfocus in a crisis makes them good at their job, is shut down, usually with insults, profanity, and bullying from the mods. They've also gone so hard on cracking down on anti-science that they've actually ended up excluding a lot of science that's legitimate, they just disagree with it. They also forbid any language around neurodiversity or neurodivergence because they insist on ADHD being a disability, only and always. They ban anyone who disagrees, and even follow users onto other subs and will issue a ban if users are part of an ND sub or other sub they don't agree with, often while bullying them on that sub before banning them. Once upon a time it was a decent place for ADHD information, but not now. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this post ends up resulting in my ban. I've somehow managed to avoid it so far. Yikes. Thanks for the warning. Wow. But also, ADHD's hyperfocus kicks in during a crisis? I'll have to read up on those EMTs. I have AD, no H, which I think is more common in women, or at least goes undiagnosed. I have a few other issues, but I have noticed that under certain emergency situations, like when my dad collapsed or I had to convince my mom over the phone to go to the hospital after she had a memory loss incident, that instead of having a very expected panic attack right away, I am able to keep my crap together and focus on the task at hand until I've done all I can, and then the panic attack hits. I don't know if I'm just good in a crisis or if that's emergency hyperfocusing, but it's nice to think my AD helps me in that way. The H often manifests as mental hyperness instead of physical hyperness in women. Not all people with ADHD experience this, but many do. We'll freak out about little things, but when the big stuff hits, the type of thing that will send others into chaos, many of us zero in and get in the zone. I also have ADHD no H, I'm male. I've noticed this is particularly true for me, during things like car accidents, being next to gunfights, and other pretty extreme examples. I lock into a really focused mode and there's zero sense of panic whatsoever. ADHD without the H is called ADHD, type I, inattentive, now. That's the one that is unfortunately very easy to fake if people just want to get legally prescribed speed. Sucks because it does a lot of damage towards the stigma of ADHD being something people can just get over by not being lazy. I hate that attitude so much. My mother and I both have ADHD and it flew under the radar because we're girls. Without jumping into full-blown life story, my mother's hyperfocus made it possible for us to live. She was a single teen parent and realized the best way to achieve financial stability would be getting an advanced degree, so she decided to get a PhD. She was all in and barely even remembered to eat. I was old enough to help with things like that, and she did it. Funny enough, years later, when she was seeking a diagnosis, she was told there was a 0% chance someone with ADHD could get a PhD. We moved and doctors here vehemently disagreed, diagnosed her, got her medicated, and she's doing much better, but it just amazes me how determined people are to pigeonhole people with ADHD. LOL. There are so many people who manage to get a PhD with ADHD. I know 3 personally. Tell her to look up twice exceptionalism if she doesn't know about it already. And good on her for finding a different doctor. That kind of discriminatory crap needs to go. That kind of thing makes me so furious. I'm a medical doctor and I was just diagnosed with ADHD this year. Being neurodiverse has made a lot of things more difficult, but certainly not impossible, and it drives me mad seeing us generalize like that. I'm really glad your mom was able to do so well and get the help she needed. What a legend. The truth hurts to those who avoid facing their own. That's horrible. My husband has lived with ADHD his whole life, in his mid-40s now. Took meds when he was much younger, then unmedicated through most of his teen and adult life. Recently he tried medicating again, and while he found the meds would quiet his thoughts, he hated it. Felt medication dumbs him down and takes away his edge. He always said there are disadvantages to ADHD, but you can also use it to your advantage in many ways. The whole "your brain must work this way to be normal" is such bullcrap. Greatness is never normal. I'd say if he still wanted to try taking it, try changing medications. I'm not particularly fond of my medication, but it helps me a lot in some scenarios. The one I use doesn't really take away my hyperfocus, but it also makes my general focus better. A couple other medications I've used have either had no effect or had pretty awful side effects. Not advocating for it, but it can work well in certain scenarios. I hated the meds too, they always made my brain feel foggy and slow. I like being able to harness the hyperfocusing and flow state to be really productive when the need arises. Is that true, the bit about not being able to talk about neurodivergence, it being a neurodevelopmental disorder? If so, that's really sad. That terminology has helped me explain ADHD to so many people in my life who didn't get it before. Yes, and that's been probably the biggest problem there. The mods will literally say ADHD is a horrible disability and there are no good aspects of it whatsoever, and then go on to verbally abuse you if you disagree. I.e., how a lot of EMTs have ADHD because the hyperfocus in a crisis makes them good at their job, huh? Whenever crap hits the fan, I'm usually the calmest person that can think clearly and do what needs to be done. Is there a way to be an EMT but not have to ever deal with obese people who can't move and crap themselves? Hot damn, so wholesome. It's enough to make a grown man cry. And that's okay. I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay. I sleep all night and I work all day. No? He's a lumberjack and he's okay. He sleeps all night and works all day. I hope this is a cloudy with a chance of meatballs reference. Right. I just love this. What a good lesson all around. I honestly teared up and makes me want to call my mom. I miss her. I haven't seen her in a couple of years. May I ask what led to that situation? I've only moved away from my parents a couple of years ago, and I can't yet imagine not seeing them for such a long time. Sometimes I'm a bit afraid of growing apart from my family. Since you don't seem to be on bad terms with your mom, what has been your experience? This hits home. Whenever I spend time with at parents' place, my father does the exact same thing. He'll wipe the counters. He'll fold the plastic bags. He'll make sure I'm washing the forks correctly. He'll make sure I'm seasoning the eggs correctly. The thing is, I'm almost 37 years old and I've been living on my own since I was 17. So no, that urge to parent probably won't stop. It's incredibly frustrating and I recently started snapping at him, but I'm going to go back and read the comments in the original thread for better insight and advice for this situation. Thanks for posting, Op. Haha, oh man. I once played babysitter for a fortnight to a family friend's baby, and for a long time afterwards I had to condition myself into stuff like remembering that it's not at all outstanding that he was speaking in full sentences because he was 7. That was when I realized how hard it must be for a parent to see a child as grown. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.